For almost half a century, Voyager 2 has drifted through the endless black like a phantom vessel of human ambition, a lone, silver ghost slipping farther from Earth than any machine before it. It whispered streams of predictable data into the abyss. Particles, plasma waves, cosmic rays. Exactly the numbers scientists expected from a silent traveler adrift in the interstellar sea. But then, everything changed. In a single transmission, the pattern broke. Voyager sent back something it was never designed to record. Not a stray glitch, not a smear of static, but an encoded pulse that analysts now call a visual cipher. At first it appeared meaningless, a dense flickering haze of noise, like the snow of an old analog television. Yet, with layering, enhancement, and time-stretched analysis, the fog began to move, to take shape, until something emerged. It wasn't a star, it wasn't a planet, it wasn't from anywhere we know, and yet it was facing us. The deeper researchers dug, the more unsettling it became. Not because of what the image revealed, but because of the silence surrounding it. Warped light, missing signals, and distortions hinting at gravity itself being bent around this thing, as though it were cloaked in the folds of space. And then came the real shiver. The transmission's carrier waves spiked with radiation. Voyager's systems wavered, its orientation shifted, and for a heartbeat, the probe itself faltered, as if something unseen had reached across the void and brushed it. The image pulled from Voyager 2's transmission defied every expectation at NASA. It wasn't just a snapshot frozen in time. It was layered, a stack of overlapping impressions, like glimpses of the same object across different moments, captured all at once, as if time itself had splintered during the act of observation. When analysts dove into the metadata, their shock deepened. The timestamps didn't line up. They collided, repeating in loops, breaking every law of linear sequence. Certain pixel clusters folded back on themselves, the resolution flickering in patterns so intricate they resembled fractal codes. What emerged wasn't a photograph at all. It was a multi-dimensional event, compressed into a flat two-dimensional signal. In the foreground loomed a silhouette, sharp, geometric, unnervingly perfect, a monolith, vast and symmetrical, suspended in a blackness utterly devoid of stars. It did not drift, it did not spin, it simply was. A presence holding still, as if it had been waiting for Voyager to arrive at the precise instant it could be seen. And then, without warning, the probe's signal fractured. Not slowly, but in a single violent rupture, as though the act of being observed had itself been detected. At that exact moment, Voyager's sensors registered something impossible. Plasma density surging at the edge of the heliopause, where the sun's reach dies and interstellar space begins. Plasma there should be near zero. Instead, a wall had appeared, a storm of charged particles, 10 times denser than anything ever measured. What unsettled the scientists most wasn't only the density of the plasma, it was the heat, not the raw nuclear heat of a star, but something stranger, contained, deliberate, engineered. This was the signature of design, not chaos, as though an unseen intelligence had built a barrier, a membrane at the edge of our system, not to keep intruders out, but to keep us in. And in that instant, Voyager did more than measure plasma. It caught a response, a ripple, a pulse of power racing toward the probe at a velocity beyond known physics, vanishing just inches from impact, as though the void itself had flinched from our gaze. But what followed was even colder than any cosmic vacuum. In the telemetry logs, amid the noise, appeared a string of binary unlike anything seen before. At first it seemed corrupted, just static, but pattern recognition algorithms began to pull shapes from the chaos. Self-replicating geometric forms repeating with eerie precision. Analysts dismissed it as compression glitches or cosmic interference, until a mathematician made the connection. The structures mirrored life, specifically the intricate branching found in deep-sea organisms on Earth, cephalopod, neural webs, coral latticework, living blueprints of intelligence. This wasn't random, this was lifelike. Encoded biological geometry, preserved in electromagnetic whispers, and within the repeating loops were deliberate gaps, distortions, as if punctuation marks had been planted inside, a syntax, a language. Then came the final shiver. When the patterns were recreated inside a simulation, they didn't stay static. They changed. They adapted. They responded to environmental input. They evolved, not as a metaphor, but literally, as though Voyager 2 had carried back not just a warning, but a seed. While global space agencies scrambled to decipher the monolith's cipher and the living geometry buried in its code, a final anomaly surfaced. Voyager's path had shifted, subtly, deliberately, not pushed by gravity, not struck by debris, but redirected, as if touched by intent. The probe's orientation rotated by precisely 3.2 degrees, enough to swing its high-gain antenna toward a sector of space with no charted stars. And then, another image arrived, or perhaps was delivered. Simpler this time. A vast ring of light, expanding outward from the black monolith, doubling, redoubling with each pulse of transmission. Within hours, NASA shut the feed. Public databases were stripped clean, but not before a handful of private observatories intercepted the faint echoes. What they found froze even the most seasoned astronomers. The object Voyager had recorded was no longer silent. It was speaking. A frequency had emerged, one that mirrored the exact structure of the golden record humanity had sent aboard Voyager. But this time, the message wasn't from us. It was to us. And the voice embedded within it was impossible to categorize. Neither human nor synthetic, yet hauntingly familiar, like a resonance buried deep in our memory, an echo we've carried unknowingly since the dawn of our species. And as astrophysicists unraveled the second image with its swelling ring of light, another impossible phenomenon began to reveal itself. Gravitational lensing, but with no massive body nearby. Instead, the very space around Voyager 2 had begun to bend. Simulations revealed distortions unlike anything known, curves that didn't map to stars, planets, or black holes. The warp was centered on nothing, hollow coordinates, a gravitational echo without a source. Some dared to suggest the unthinkable. Space itself had gone non-Euclidean around the probe. Reality folding in directions our three dimensions cannot explain, the sort of geometry whispered about in theories of engineered space, corridors, artificial wormholes, hidden passageways carved between dimensions. But the most chilling detail, the distortion wasn't drawing Voyager inward, it was following it, crawling beneath the fabric of reality, mirroring its every move as if shadowing the probe from a plane we cannot see. A plane Voyager had somehow revealed simply by being there. Then came the detail that made NASA engineers' blood run cold. After the unexplained reorientation, Voyager's systems began to respond to itself. Deep inside the binary pulse were fragments reflected back in real time, as if the transmission had struck something unseen and bounced home. But Voyager has no two-way channel. In the abyss of interstellar space, there should be nothing to answer. And yet, its processors behaved as if locked in conversation, an echo loop. At first, the return came with a 12-hour delay, then 9, then 6, then 3, until the impossible happened. The response arrived before the signal was even sent. Chronology collapsed. Data was arriving not from the past, not even the present, but from the future. Or worse, Voyager 2 had somehow synchronized with a system that existed outside of time altogether. Under growing pressure from whistleblowers inside NASA, a team of civilian cryptographers was quietly given partial access to the raw image logs. What they uncovered turned scientific wonder into pure dread. Hidden within the sublayers of the image, beyond the reach of visible light, was a lattice of code so compact, so endlessly recursive, it resembled quantum entanglement encryption. In plain terms, the signal could not be decoded without disturbing its original state. Observation itself became interaction. Every attempt to parse it carried consequences. Software crashed, data corrupted, servers fried without warning. In one chilling case, hardware melted down entirely, as if the signal was fighting back. At first, analysts assumed it was a glitch, a corrupted packet, maybe even a clever cyber intrusion. But then one voice in the room broke the silence with a question no one wanted to face. What if it wasn't a mistake? What if it was never meant to be read by us at all? The implications cut deep. By forcing the code open, they weren't simply running data. They were unraveling something tied to deeper systems. Not digital, not mechanical, but human, a mimetic payload, a thought virus. Voyager hadn't just returned an image. It had delivered an infection of the mind, and now it was loose on Earth. And just as authorities scrambled to contain the anomaly and choke the leaks, something even darker slipped through. Voyager 2 spoke again, a third transmission. Unprompted, unshaken, and utterly unexplainable. No plasma surge, no geometry, not even a signal in the traditional sense. This time, it was a sound, a harmonic wave modulated with a rhythm that felt almost alive, like breathing, like speech. When engineers converted it to audio, every listener described the same thing, an invisible weight pressing against their chest and behind their eyes, as if an intelligence, stretched across galaxies, was staring back through them. The waveform itself was a map, repeating curves that echoed the shape captured in Voyager's first image. But around that pulse spiraled prime numbers nested in sets of 3, unfurling like a coded prayer. Some saw pure mathematics, others whispered ritual. But one linguist at the SETI Institute cut through the debate with a single chilling verdict. "This isn't a greeting," she said. "It's an algorithmic lock. It's telling us something is coming, and we have to choose, respond, or run." And still Voyager drifted onward, transmitting fragments no one dared fully decode. One message rose above the rest, clear and direct: "You have been observed." International observatories were secretly ordered to scan the coordinates toward which Voyager had shifted. That's when an interferometer in Australia caught something impossible. Not a visual, not a heat signature, not radiation, a distortion, a massive object with zero light, zero heat, zero measurable presence. Invisible in every sense except one: gravity. And the strangest part, it appeared to move faster when no one was looking. Only when sensors locked on did it slow. The phenomenon fit chillingly well with models once dismissed as fringe: observer-dependent quantum constructs, structures that flicker into existence only when watched by an intelligent mind. Put simply, this object might not have existed at all until Voyager looked at it. And now, awakened by its gaze, it was looking back. Soon after, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory received what looked like an ordinary telemetry dump from Voyager 2, routine subsystem diagnostics. But when analysts compared the logs to earlier baselines, the results froze them in place. Voyager's circuits were no longer behaving like electronics. Its electromagnetic emissions were mimicking organic patterns. These weren't glitches, not interference. They were biomimetic fluctuations, signals replicating the same recursive geometries hidden in the transmissions, as if the probe's own circuitry was mutating, adapting, evolving. Some engineers whispered that Voyager had been compromised, hijacked, infected. But one technician put it more plainly: it's learning how to think. And if that was true, then the machine humanity built to explore the stars was no longer ours. Perhaps no longer even a machine. Then the silence began. Voyager's signal didn't fade. It didn't break. The carrier wave remained strong, but the data stream turned alien. White noise, endless loops of null code. Not random, not corrupted, but structured emptiness, like placeholders in a language waiting to be filled. To some, it meant the probe had been overtaken, subsumed. To others, the truth was even more terrifying. Voyager 2 had become something new: a relay, a repeater, a voice for a structure vast enough to align itself with our solar system. Across the skies, SETI arrays began to catch faint, disjointed echoes, whispers scattered through unrelated sectors of space, yet all carrying the same modulation as Voyager's last true signal. It was as though the probe had absorbed our message and was now practicing how to send one back. Then came the colder thought: what if we weren't simply being answered? What if we were being rehearsed? In a bid to calm the panic boiling inside government labs, a classified summit was hastily convened. NASA, the European Space Agency, the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs. Behind closed doors, a long-buried file was placed on the table. Voyager Event Log Alpha 01, date stamped 1982. It described a phenomenon eerily similar to what was unfolding now: a faint anomaly detected not long after Voyager's launch. Back then, the signal was weaker, almost childlike, but already carrying the same spirals of prime numbers and inverted pulses of time. The file had been suppressed to avoid public hysteria, and one redacted line, finally revealed, sent a chill through the room. If signal repeats in future cycle, initiate Protocol 9, planetary alert and object deflection measures. Protocol 9 had never been activated until now. Because if Voyager's final image wasn't a discovery, but a repetition, if these transmissions were not a first contact, but a second, then whatever is coming already knows the path, and it isn't just approaching, it's returning. While the world's eyes stayed locked on the silent corpse of Voyager 2's transmission, a chilling realization emerged. The probe's final image was not unique. In 2009, a radio burst from a quasar-like object near the Sculptor galaxy had carried an almost identical signature. Back then, it was brushed off as noise, a glitch. But now, cross-referenced against Voyager's data, the match was undeniable. A mirror across decades, across the void. What did it mean? That the same organic, recursive shape, laced with a mathematic precision no natural process could mimic, had surfaced in two completely separate parts of the universe. Two different epochs, two different technologies. The implications were terrifying. This wasn't a new discovery. This was a pattern, a cosmic watermark that emerges when a civilization crosses a certain invisible threshold, a rite of passage written into the fabric of reality itself. But what if we were never meant to finish it? Researchers in Japan and Germany, working in secret, began folding Voyager's image along multidimensional planes using quasi-crystal mathematics. And there it was, a shape that rotated inward without end, an imploding spiral not found in any biological system, not mapped to any known star. It aligned perfectly with Voyager's own flight path. It wasn't just geometry, it was a map, encrypted across time and space, not pointing to a place, but to a state, a transformation. One physicist described it only as a bridge, but a bridge to where? To what? If Voyager had triggered something, had cracked open that impossible bridge, was it still with us on this side, or had it already slipped beyond? In the days following the last signal, strange ripples spread through the world's scientific elite. Astrophysicists, SETI advisors, military consultants with clearance to see what the public never would. One by one, they vanished from view. Social media accounts went dark. University rosters scrubbed names overnight. Aerospace agencies issued vague announcements about health leave or project fatigue, while quiet resignations stacked up like dominoes. But then came the leak, an internal memo from an unnamed whistleblower, a single line of text more chilling than any rumor. Subject has requested immediate relocation to underground facility. Site 7 reports receiving call from signal fragment C. No one outside that facility knew what fragment C even was. But a pattern emerged. Those who had stared longest at Voyager's final image were no longer willing to stay on the surface, as if they knew something was coming, and it would not arrive quietly. And then the alignment began. No press conference, no breaking news, no warning. The global web of very long baseline interferometry telescopes slowly pivoted, not toward any known star or planet, but toward a blank patch of sky along the ecliptic plane. Astronomers refused to comment. Politicians acted as though nothing had changed. But amateur radio operators caught the frequency, a harmonic blend at 52 Hz, the loneliest sound in the ocean, now echoing in space. Voyager's final note, mirrored, amplified, and beamed outward towards something unnamed. One thing was certain, something had answered, and now every dish on Earth was listening. Not by order, not by command, but by instinct, as if the Earth itself had just remembered something buried deep in its memory. Something ancient, etched into the stars long before we were here to see them. And so, after decades of drifting alone through the abyss, Voyager 2 did what no one ever expected. It didn't just send us data, it pulled back a curtain we never even knew existed. With one transmission, it fractured the foundations of our belief. Space, we thought, was empty, silent, indifferent. But now we know the truth. It is neither empty nor indifferent. It is alive. It is watching. It is listening. And perhaps it always was. The image was never meant to inspire wonder. It was a warning, a whisper stitched across dimensions, breaking through the vacuum, not with brute force, but with intent. What that intent means, we cannot yet say. Is it an invitation, a test, a judgment? All we know is this: the world has changed. Not because of what we saw, but because we were seen. The stars may seem quiet tonight, the sky as still as ever. But beyond that stillness, something old, something conscious, something vast, knows our name, and it has already answered. Voyager was never just a messenger. It was a mirror, and in its reflection, we found not the image of space, but the truth of our place within it. So, the next time you look up at the night sky, remember, somewhere beyond those stars, something looked back, and it did not blink. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments. And we'll see you in the next one.